Okay, this is part two. This is the application problems. This is before we add the quadratic formula piece, which many of you learned in high school. I don't want you to use the quadratic formula piece for everything. You need to understand how to factor. So this next portion is strictly applications. Those of you who are moving on to problem solving need to have a good handle on this. Those of you who are moving on to statistics will need to understand a little piece of this. And those of you who are moving on to college algebra, I will bring to your attention the pieces that you really need to understand because you will be seeing those. Those of you in problem solving, though, that class is primarily all word problems. So this part, this entire section with only a couple of exceptions, you need to understand. All right. Even if you are only going to problem solving, if you change your major and you need to go the college algebra route, pay attention and make sure that you understand this just in case your major changes along the way. That's what we do. That's what students do. I've done it many times. All right, the product of two consecutive integers is 56. So we have to, as math is a language, we have to understand what is happening here. You need to decipher what it's saying. Product means multiply, always. Now, two consecutive integers. What does that mean? Two integers means you've got two numbers that's anything from negative infinity to infinity that's not a fraction. So it's going to be either a -5 or a 0 or a +7, something like that. All right. Consecutive means one right after the other, like the numbers 3 and 4. 4 is right after 3. So those are consecutive numbers. All right. So we need to multiply two consecutive integers, but we need to label those algebraically so that we can solve for them. So my first number, and I typically always use x, and if you like a different letter variable, use whatever you want. My first integer is going to be x. My second integer, because I want it to be one right after the one. So if you think of 3 and 4, how do you get from 3 to 4? You add 1. So for consecutive integers, you just go with the first number and add 1. That's it. Now, we have to go back and do the product. We have to multiply the first and second integers and then understand that the word is always means always, always, always equals. So the product would be x times x plus 1 is 56. You're not just setting this up. You're solving for this now. So we're going to distribute x times x, and then x times 1. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is just x, equal to 56. Now let's go through and do what we did in the last video. We need to move everything on one side, keeping the number in front of x squared, which is 1, positive. So that means the 56 needs to move over to the other side with the x squared plus x. And we need 0 to be on the other side of that equal sign only. So we're going to subtract 56 because it is currently positive. We get x squared plus x minus 56 is equal to 0. Factor, 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 x and x. Now, the factors of 56 that subtract to give us, because there's a positive and negative, to give us 1. We need a positive 1. I'm going to think it's going to be 8 and 7. So 8 and 7, the middle number is positive, so my larger number must be positive. Now that I've got it factored, I'm going to take each of these binomials and set them equal to 0. Solving for x for both. This one's 8 is added to x, so we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. X is equal to -8. There's one answer. The other one has 7 minus x, so we have to add 7 to both sides. X is equal to +7. There's my second answer. Now, this is only the first, these are the first answers. These are the first integers. We need to find the second integer. So the first one is x equals -8. The second would be x plus 1, which is x is -8 plus 1 is -7. There's the second one. For the first being x is equal to 7, the second is x plus 1, so 7 plus 1 is 8. There's your first and second integer, your first and second integer. That both will, the product of the two will give you 56. All right, the product of two consecutive odd integers. So I need to stop right now. This problem can be solved using odd or even. No matter which of the two it is, you're going to use the same exact thing every time. So your first integer and your second integer. Your first integer, I always let be x. Again, you choose your variable. Your second one, whether it's odd or even. Now let's think of that. We have to start with an odd integer here. An odd integer would be the number 3. 3 is odd. How do I get to my next odd integer? What is my next odd integer? 5. To get from 3 to 5, I have to add 2. So my second integer is x plus 2. The same thing for even integers. If they were two consecutive even integers, say you started off with the number 4, how do you get to the next even integer, which is 6? You add 2. It's always the same, okay? But you've got to pay attention if it says odd integer, even integer, or just consecutive integer. Those are different things. So the product means multiply. So we're multiplying these two integers. X times x plus 2 is 1 less than 4 times their sum. 4 times, now what does sum mean? Sum means add. So we need to put this in your dictionary. Sum means add. And we've done this before. This was back in foundations. So 4 times their sum, x plus 2. We've got it set up. We're not done. This isn't just the setup like we did in foundations. This is solving because we need to find what these two integers are. I have to distribute my left side, x times x and x times 2. So x squared plus 2x. And then before I distribute that 4, I don't want to do it yet. You have to still follow your order of operations. Rosie, stop. So you have to add what's happening inside here. You need to simplify this first. X plus x is 2x plus 2. Bring down your minus 1. Now you can distribute. You want to simplify everything as low as you can go. X squared plus 2x is equal to 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times 2 is 8 minus 1. Let's keep going. X squared plus 2x is equal to 8x. 8 minus 1 is 7. Now, I've simplified everything I can on both sides as low as I can go. I've combined every like term I possibly can. Now is when I want to keep my x squared positive because it already is. And I want to move everything that's on the right side of that equal sign over to the left so that I can have 0 by itself on one side of that equal sign. So I'm going to be subtracting 8x and subtracting 7. I'm left with x squared minus 6x minus 7 is equal to 0. Now's when we factor. All right, x and x, 7 and 1. There's nothing else we could use. We want our middle term to be negative, so it's the 7's negative and the 1 is positive. Now that we have factored it, we have to set each one of these equal to 0, each binomial. X minus 7 equal to 0 and x plus 1 equal to 0. For the first one, we're going to add 7 to both sides. So x is equal to 7. Subtract 1 from both sides. X is equal to -1. Now, this is just our first integer, our first odd integer. Yes, 7 is odd. Yes, -1 is odd. But we now need to find our second one by taking x plus 2. And for the first one, I'm going to take 7 plus 2, and that is 9. For the second one, x plus 2, so -1 plus 2 is 1. So -1 and 1. Let me know what questions you have about that. I expect them. All right, the sum means we're adding. Two integers is 16. Ooh. Okay, so our first integer and our second integer. Our first one I'm going to let be x, as I always do. But this one doesn't say they're consecutive. It also doesn't say they're even. It also doesn't say they're odd. It just says two integers. So I can't just go 1x and 2x. You have to have x and at least a y, or an a and a b. Pick your variables, but they need to be different. The sum of these two integers is 16. So if you add x plus y, you get 16. That's what this first sentence is saying. The second sentence is saying that their product, remember product is multiplication, so that means that x times y is 48. Find the integers. Well, I need to solve for one of them in one of these, and I don't want to deal with fractions. So I'm just going to come over here and solve for y. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. Y is equal to 16 minus x. Cool. Now, I've done that with this part. I'm going to come over here and go, okay, y is equal to 16 minus x. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to go x times y, which is, I'm just going to substitute 16 minus x, equals 48. Okay, and all I did was I took the x times y, which is 16 minus x, which I substituted, equals 48. And I'm going to go through and solve for x. To do that, I can't set x equal to 48 and 16 minus x equal to 48. That's so wrong. Please don't do that. Instead, you do have to distribute. 16x minus x squared is equal to 48. Now, this will be the first time we're dealing with this in this section. My x squared is negative. You don't want x squared to be negative. You want x squared to be positive. It'll make your life so much easier, I promise. So I'm not moving the 48 over. I'm moving the 16x minus x squared to the other side of the equal sign to where 0 is by itself on the left. 16x is positive, so I need to subtract 16x from both sides. X squared is negative, so I need to add x squared to both sides. The other thing I'm going to do whenever I simplify this is I'm going to put them in order from the x squared to the constant, because that's the way they're supposed to be written, is the highest exponent to the lowest. So x squared minus 16x plus 48. And we can now factor. Rosie. All right, I need to know what two numbers multiply together to give me 48, but add up to give me 16. Let's see what the products of 48 are. 48 and 1 is not going to give me 16, so I'm not going to waste my time there. 4 times 12, 2 times 21, nope, 2 times 24. There we go. I know 3 goes into, well, how are these looking? 16, 14. Well, this is 16 right here. So 4 and 12. And they both have to be negative because the negative is only in the middle. Again, this is not new. This is just a refresh. So we're going to take each of these binomials and set them equal to 0. I guarantee that. Rosie. And I'm going to take the 4 to the other side. It's negative, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. X is equal to 4. And add 12 to both sides. X is equal to 12. All right, that finds one of my integers. I need to find the other integer because there's going to be a second one for each of these. And now's when I can come in and go, okay, 16 minus x, because now's when I have to use this part because I've already solved for y. Y equals 16 minus the 4. So y equals 12. X equals 4, y equals 12. For x equals 12, we're going to go y equals 16 minus 12. So y equals 4. All right. Now we're dealing with geometry. And this entire page, you need to pay attention if you're moving on to problem solving for sure. Okay, and college algebra. All right. The length of a rectangle. Oh, I need to draw a rectangle. I have to draw a picture, and if you do too, please do so. So the length of a rectangle, we'll call this our length, and we'll call this our width, is 3 more than the width. Well, more than means we're adding. So 3 more than the width. And looks like we're done. The area is 10 square units. I'm going to go square units. Find the dimensions. Okay, so area is equal to length times width is what you need to understand for a rectangle. Area, they're telling us, is 10. Length is W plus 3, because we want everything to be in terms of W so we can solve for the width. You don't want L times W because that doesn't help you solve anything. You need everything to have the same variable. So when you get to this point, again, you do not set each of these equal to 10. You need 0 to be on the other side. So the first thing you're going to do is distribute. W times W is W squared. This one I would not change to X and Y. Okay. W times 3 is 3W. Now we need these because the W is positive. The W squared is positive. You want to keep it positive. So we're going to subtract 10 from both sides. Factor, 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 factor. W and W. 10 is 10 and 1 and 5 and 2. 5 and 2 will give me 3. 3 is positive, so I need my 5 to be positive. My larger number has to be positive. Now that I've got my two binomials, I'm going to set these each equal to 0. Solving for W. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. Now here's an issue. When you measure anything, as far as you break out a tape measure and you want to measure the width of the rectangle or the width of a desk, it will never be a negative number. Your dimensions, for any length, can never be negative. So we're done with this one. We're going to add 2 to both sides. The width is 2 units. Now for this one, this is the answer for the width. I need to find the length. And up here, the length is W plus 3. W is 2 plus 3, so the length is 5 units. There are your dimensions. 2 times 5 is 10 square units. Let's go to the next one. The height of a triangle. Doesn't say a right triangle, just a triangle. So the height for a triangle is 3 times the base. Well, this is the base. And the height is 3 times the base. The area is 24 square units. Find the base. Well, I need to know how to find the area because I've got some numbers here that I need to be able to use. Area, and there's multiple ways to think about this. It's 1/2 base times height, or 0.5 times base times height. But the one that I've always liked, and I find that students make the least number of mistakes with, is base times height divided by 2. I just find that this is the one that causes the least number of issues. So let's set this up. Where the A is, I'm going to substitute 24. Where the B is, I'm going to leave it as B. Where the H is, however, I can put 3B because it's 3 times the base. And then all of this is over 2. First thing I want to do is get rid of that 2. We want to get rid of the fractional piece. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equal sign by 2. 2 times 24 is 48. This one is gone. We're left with B times 3B, which is 3B squared. Okay. Now, again, we don't want to solve for B here. We can't do that. You don't have the tools that I've given you. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to start by try getting B by itself. What I could do is go ahead and divide both sides by 3. Let's see if that works. So B squared is equal to 48 divided by 3 is 16. All right, we'll rewrite that up here. My b square is already positive, and I want to keep it positive. So I need to bring my 16 over to the other side to set this equal to 0. Now, this is the difference of two squares. And I just need a negative and a positive. Set each of these binomials equal to 0. This one we have to add 4 to both sides. So the base is 4 units. Subtract 4 from both sides. The base cannot be a negative. So they just wanted us to find the base. The base is 4 units. Always provide your units if they're given. Muy importante. We could find the height too. I know it says just to find the base, but because I know what you're going to see in the next class, you need to know how to find the height. All right. So to find the height here, h is equal to 3 times the base. 3 times 4. So the height is 12 units. Just so that you know how to do that. The next one is a right triangle. Right triangle means you have one right angle in a triangle, which means it's 90 degrees, perfectly perpendicular. And the side directly opposite that right angle is called the hypotenuse. You all need to know this for this next classes you're going to take. I don't care which class you're taking, you need to know this. The hypotenuse is always the longest side of a right triangle, and it's always the one that's directly across from that right angle. The other two sides are called legs, and it doesn't matter which one you call A and which one you call B. The only thing that matters is that the hypotenuse is C. Always, always, always. The hypotenuse is C. Okay, let's keep going. The shorter leg, we'll call this one the shorter leg, is 5 meters. The hypotenuse, which is this guy here, is 1 meter longer than the longer leg. So we don't know what the longer leg is, but we do know the hypotenuse is 1 meter longer than the longer leg. All right. Find the length of the longer leg. We're going to find the length of the longer leg and the hypotenuse, just because you need to, again, understand what's happening here. To do that, you have to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared, the Pythagorean theorem. C is the only one you've got to get placed in the right place, and that is this guy right here. So it doesn't matter which one's A or B. I'm going to go with, we'll call A X, B would be 5, and C is X plus 1. And they all have to be squared individually. X squared plus 5 squared is 25 is equal to, now this is X plus 1 times X plus 1. Use distributive, FOIL, box, whatever method you use to multiply these two binomials. So X times X is X squared. X times 1 is 1X. 1 times X is 1X. 1 times 1 is 1. Let's simplify the right. Okay. Now we've got two X squares. They're both positive. So I'm just going to bring everything. Well, how can I do this? What's my next thing down? 2X. I'm going to bring, let's just subtract X squared from both sides. Now we have 25 is equal to 2X plus 1. Well, this one we're only going to have one answer for. So we need to solve for X. To do that, we need to get rid of that 1 first. Subtracting 1 from both sides, we get 24 is equal to 2X. To solve for X, we have to divide both sides by 2. X is equal to 12. So what does that mean? The longest leg, the longer leg, is 12 meters. What is the hypotenuse? The hypotenuse is X plus 1. Well, x is 12 plus 1, so the hypotenuse is 13 meters. When you take problem solving, statistics, or college algebra, if you are given a word problem, you should always answer with a sentence and the correct unit and correct rounding. Those are the things you're really being, expected to do. Okay. All right. The next one is the hypotenuse of a right triangle. So there's my hypotenuse right there, is 15 inches. One of the legs is 3 inches more than the other. So we'll call one X and one 3 inches more. All right, find the length of the two legs. We're going to have to use Pythagorean again. Doesn't matter which one's A or B. What matters is that this guy is C. That's all that matters. So x squared plus x plus 3 squared is equal to 15 squared. Thank you. X squared is x squared. This is x plus 3 times x plus 3. And this 15 squared is 225. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 3 is 9. Simplify the left side. 2x squared plus 6x plus 9 is equal to 225. We need to set everything equal to 0 since the 2x squared, the coefficient of x squared is positive. We're going to leave those numbers on the left. We're going to just bring the 225 over, subtracting it from both sides. What number is that? 216? Yeah. All right, I see they're all even, so I'm going to start by factoring out a 2. Wait. Now to get rid of that 2, because there's not an x with it, I can just divide both sides of the equal sign by 2, and booyah, it's gone. Now we're just left with x squared plus 3x minus 108 is equal to 0. Products, let's see, 108 factors that add up to, that subtract to give us 3. And in this case, it's going to be what? 9 and 12? 9 and 12. The middle number is positive, so your 12 has to be positive, setting each one of these binomials equal to 0. Solve for x. Add 9 to both sides. X is equal to 9. Subtract 12 from both sides. X is equal to negative 12. This is measuring length. This is the length of a leg. It can't be negative. So this side, so one leg is 9 inches. And the other leg, which is x plus 3, which is 9 plus 3, is 12 inches. So the legs are 9 inches and 12 inches. All right. This next one's a little bit more difficult. You have to understand that, okay, let me read it to you first. A company can manufacturing X hundred items for a total cost of C. So this stuff after the equal sign is a representation of what the total cost is to manufacture X hundred items. We need to find out what that X is. How many items are manufactured if the total C, the total cost, is 900? So I'm going to take this trinomial, this quadratic, and put C. I'm going to substitute 900 where the C is. 300 plus 500x minus 100x squared. Before you do anything, I know you see that you can factor. You can't factor yet until everything's on the same side. You can honestly see that this is a negative x squared. That's no bueno. We need to bring all this whole thing over to the left side so that we can have a positive x squared. So I'm going to subtract 300. I'm going to subtract 500x, and I'm going to add 100x squared to both sides and put them in order. All right, let's clean this up. I should have stacked them, but I didn't. I'm sorry. Negative 300 plus 900 is 600. All right, now we can factor out 100 from both sides. I'm sorry, from this trinomial. That's much nicer to look at. Divide both sides by 100, and it is gone. Little tricks we can do. Now we need a factor. The product, the two numbers that multiply to give you 6 and 1 and 3 and 2, the only ones that add up to 5 are 3 and 2. Since the negative is only in the middle, they're both negative. We need to set each of these equal to 0 and solve. Add 3 to both sides. X is equal to 3. Add 2 to both sides. X is equal to 2. Now the question is, how many items were manufactured? Well, the items are X 100 items. So you need to understand that the total items manufactured are 3 times 100, 2 times 100. So it's either 300 or 200 items were manufactured. Both will give you the answer for this formula. Ooh, how much more do we have here? 2 more. All right, I'm going to take a pause for just a second. Okay, a company that manufactures hair ribbons knows that the number of ribbons it can sell each week, X, is related to the price P per ribbon by the equation X equals 1200 minus 100P. So before I even go any further, I want to refer to what these are. I'm going to take X is equal to 1200 minus 100P. You need to understand what the variables are. And if I write it down now, I don't have to go back and reassess and reread that first sentence again. So the number of ribbons it sells each week is X. Number of ribbons sold each week. P is the price per ribbon. Now I will not have to re-look at that. At what price should the company sell the ribbons if it wants the weekly revenue to be $3,200? Well, revenue, R, is equal to X times P, the price. All right. So I'm going to use that. Revenue is equal to X times P. Well, they're wanting our revenue to be 3,200. So I'm just substituting where the revenue is for 3,200 is equal to X. Well, in this case, X is 1,200 minus 100P times P. First thing I have to do is distribute that P over that binomial. P times each of these. So 3,200 is equal to 1,200P minus 100P squared. 1,200 times P is 1,200P. Negative 100P times P is negative 100P squared. Our P squared is negative. No bueno. We need to move it to the other side along with the 1,200P to make our coefficient of our squared variable positive. So I'm going to subtract 1,200P and add 100P squared to both sides. I'm going to get 100P squared minus 1,200P, bring down the plus 3,200 equals 0. I'm just putting them in order, p squared, p, and constant. Now I see that they all end in 100. So I can factor out 100 from each of these. 100 from 100 p squared is just p squared, minus 100 times 12 is 1200, and 100 times 32 will take care of that. I can divide both sides by 100, and my 100 is gone. Cannot do that if there is a variable out here. Only if there is a constant, just a number. No p, no x, just 100. Let's factor. All right, two numbers that multiply together to give you 32, but add to give you 16. So 32 and 1 is not 12. 16 times 2 is 32. That doesn't give you 12. 8 times 4 is 32. That does add to 12. Both of them are negative because only the middle number is negative. Now set each of these equal to 0. Add 8 to both sides. P is equal to 8. Add 4 to both sides. P is equal to 4. So what does this mean? The question is, at what price should the company sell the ribbons if they want a weekly revenue of $3,200? They have a choice. You either sell them for $8 or $4. The price should be either, don't forget your dollar sign, $8 or $4. One more, this next one. Those of you who are moving on to college algebra trick, you need to understand this. You will be seeing this, this and more from this same, there's 3 questions that I ask every time I teach this lecture. The first one, we're not going to discuss. The second one is, at what time will the ball be 22 feet above the ground? And the second one is, when will the ball hit the ground? There's another one as well that I asked, but we're not going to discuss that. So the first one you're going to say is, okay, a ball is thrown into the air with an upward velocity of 26 feet per second from a building that is 12 feet high. So let's just say you're on a building and you've got a ball in your hand, and you throw that ball, and it's going to have an arch. So you throw the ball, it's going to have a point where it's up here tall, up here high, and it's going to have a point where it actually hits the ground. So the question is, the equation that gives the height of the ball is this, where t is the time it takes, and then h of t is where the distance is, where it is above the ground. So at what time will the ball be 22 feet above the ground? At what point will the ball be 22 feet above the ground? That's where we're going to let h of t equal 22. And then the second question will be, which you'll see with me, when will the ball hit the ground? Well, what is the height of the ball when it hits the ground? The height will be 0. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to substitute 22 for the height, for the h of t. And these are always set up where the squared variable is negative. You're going to have to move all that over to the other side. So we're going to subtract 12, subtract 26t, and we're going to add 16t squared to both sides. So 16t squared minus 26t, 22 minus 12 is plus 10, and set that equal to 0. We're going to solve for t. T will tell us the time it takes for that ball that's thrown to actually be 10 foot higher than where it currently is. It's going to be 22 feet above the ground. First thing I see is they're all even. So I want to make my life easier by dividing everything by 2. And if you do it like this, then you don't have to go back later and divide by 2. So this is 8t squared minus 13t plus 5 is equal to 0. All right. Now I need a factor. To do this, I need to take 8 times 5, which is 40, and I need to find out what numbers, well, it's 8 and 5. Give me 13. Okay, so this is 8t squared minus 8t minus 5t plus 5 is equal to 0. Well, that was easy enough because 8 times 5 is 40, but 8 plus 5 is 13. So that made it easy. All right, look at your first two and then your last two. First two, they have 8t in common. Factor that out, you're left with t minus 1. We want this one to be a t minus 1 as well. And so we have to factor out negative 5 to get that. Now you're going to look at both of these terms, factor out t minus 1, and you're left with 8t minus 5. The other thing you could have done is trial and error for this to get these two binomials. Either way works. This is just one of the ways. All right, now that we've got our two binomials, we need to set them both equal to 0. T minus 1 is equal to 0. Add 1 to both sides. T is equal to 1. 8t minus 5 equal to 0. Add 5 to both sides. 8t is equal to 5. And then divide both sides by 8. T is equal to 5/8. So what was the other thing I was going to show you here? Oh, okay. So for how long does it take for the ball to hit 22 feet? So you would write, for the ball to reach 22 feet would take 1 second or 5/8 of a second. All right. Because there's always two answers. The next one is, at what time, when will the ball hit the ground? And this is where you want h of t to be 0. Now, again, we do not want our t squared to be negative, so we need to move everything to the other side. So we're going to be subtracting 12, subtracting 26t, and adding 16t squared to both sides. Putting them in order. 16t squared minus 26t minus 12 is equal to 0. They are, again, all can be divided by 2. Keep life easy. So 8t squared minus 13t minus 6 is equal to 0. Okay. Need to, 8 times 6 is 48. Or we could do trial and error. Either one works. You're going to get 8t plus 3 and t minus 2. If you have not, go through and figure out if this works. Okay. Use either this method or use the method to where you do trial and error. Either way, this is what you're going to be looking at for your two binomials. You're going to set each of these equal to 0 and solve. Subtract 3 from both sides. 8t is equal to negative 3. Divide both sides by 8. T is equal to negative 3/8. Add 2 to both sides. T is equal to 2. Time, we do not have a time machine. We don't have a DeLorean. We can't go back in time. So negative 3/8 seconds does not work. So it will take 2 seconds for the ball to hit the ground. Those of you moving to college algebra trig need to know this. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Let me know what questions you have.